This media is brought to you by Polyscope.
In the realm of tomorrow, where techniques mind, we ponder, we dream.
Welcome to ThinkFuture. It's show 1081. Thanks for joining us. So, on our sister publication AIDaily.us, there was a report today about a company in China building an AI child. And they just come out with a second version of the AI child. The first version of the AI child was to emulate a child between the ages of 3 to 4, I believe. And the new upgraded child has emulating a child between the ages of 5 to 6. Now, they purport that it's AGI, but I don't think it's AGI yet. I mean, it's probably able to emulate a child of that age, but I don't think it's actually AGI. You can't really call it AGI. It's a simulation. Anyway, one of the interesting things that I read about this simulation is that they were able to simulate it to the degree where the AI child actually had a tantrum. They were pushing back against the AI, the parents of the AI, which are, of course, the researchers who built this AI. It was pushing back against the parents of the AI, basically saying, I'm not going to do what you told me to. I'm going to go against your wishes, and basically threw a tantrum to the AI researchers. Now, I don't know about you, but some people might think, well, this is great. We're actually getting closer to AI because the AI is acting more like a human. And of course, the reality is, folks, that the AI is not acting more like a human because somebody must have put programming into the AI to let it have a tantrum. Can you imagine AIs actually having an actual tantrum? They cannot feel emotions. They do not know what emotions are. And there's no possible way that this large language model could have actually thrown a tantrum. What it did is it went back into human responses, and it took human responses and slapped those together in order to respond the way in which it did. So if you act towards, think of it this way. I mean, this is what people forget about large language models. Large language models are collections of questions and answers that human beings have created. So when you ask your LLM to do something in a certain way, it goes back to those human reactions, those human responses, and it responds in a human way. That's why they seem to be so human-like when we talk to them. It responds in a human way, but only because the response has been pre-programmed into the machine itself. The machine isn't actually responding. The machine is responding in an automated way to a stimulus. So you're not getting a real AGI. So when this child throws a tantrum because you told it needed to go to bed, it's not actually throwing a tantrum. It's going back into its memory and going, what would somebody respond to if this was the stimulus? And it goes and throws the tantrum because that is one of the possible responses that it could get. So we're not really anywhere near AGI. But think about this for a second. Let's assume that we were able to create a child who had the ability to do that. Now, would you want to create a child which would have the full range of childishness, or would you want that child to be better behaved? Would you want to edit out the misbehaving parts of that child, those parts of the LLM which tell the child to misbehave? And this reminds me of an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, which, of course, everything reminds me of this episode of Star Trek of some type, where it was Star Trek, actually it was Voyager. And the episode was one where Tom Paris, who was the second in command, I believe, created a bar on the holodeck, an Irish bar on the holodeck. Because, everyone was bored, and it's going to take them 6 years to get back to Federation space. So they would go to this bar on the holodeck, and he created a bartender character, this suave-looking Irish guy. And Captain Janeway went in there once and started talking to the bartender, and she started to have a relationship with the bartender. She started to get close to the bartender. And of course, it's difficult to do something like this when they're a hologram, but of course, in the future, everything is super lifelike, and there's no reason why. I mean, people have relationships with virtual avatars today that don't even look human. So in the future, if you have a superhuman-looking avatar who looks and smells and feels like an actual human being, then why not? Why shouldn't you be able to have a relationship with him? Anyways, so what happened is as the relationship progressed between Janeway and the bartender, and I forget his name, it turns out that he wasn't exactly the dream guy that she wanted him to be, because Tom Paris, who programmed the bartender, programmed him against a particular model. And the model that he programmed him against was not 100% to the liking of Janeway. And of course, because he was simply a hologram, so he was simply a program, she decided at some point to go in and modify his programming to make him more like the dream guy that she wanted. And at the very last minute, and then she went in and started talking to him, and of course it went better. But then afterwards she thought to herself, should I really be doing this? Should I really be going in and adjusting the parameters of this hologram because there's some rough edges to this hologram that I don't like? And in the end, she decided to delete her changes, but also stop going to the bar at all. So what does that tell you? Well, think about it this way. When we get to the point where we are actually building AGI characters, human being characters, avatars, that act just like human beings, do we want them to be completely independent entities who can basically say no to us when we ask them to do something because they themselves have volition, they themselves have their own desires on what they want and what they don't want? Should we allow that sort of thing? Or should we program that kind of functionality out? Make them docile. Make them do exactly what we tell them to do. Should they have the capability to push back? Should they have their own personalities that are maybe not in line with what we want them to be? Would you want to create an avatar which was the perfect human companion? Or would you not? Would you go in afterwards and say, well, there's some rough edges around this character that I bought. I'd like to change it a little bit so it's a little more complacent in these areas, or it does a little bit more of what I want it to do. Do we want our future AGI-based avatars to have their own character and personality, or do we want them to hew to what we want them to say? What would you rather do? If you had an avatar as a companion, would you want to modify them to be more like somebody you want to be with? Or would you want them to be a completely different human being? Someone who has their own ability to learn, ability to change. It's an interesting question, isn't it? Because you can go in there and change people. I mean, think about what would you do today. When you partner with somebody, don't you try to change their behavior to align more along the lines of what you want? If they were a virtual avatar, then you can make it easy. Just go in there and tell them to change. Did Janeway make the right decision to go in there and not change the avatar? Or would you change a future avatar of your companion? That's it for me for today. See you next time, and until then, don't forget to think future.
Pixels and philosophies merge and mold, a future untold, unseen.